Well, I believe we're live. Or we in? Oh, well, I thought we might be in a intro video. No.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
doesn't look
So,
like it. No.
okay. So, no intro video, but guys, what's up? Welcome to the stream. The New York Mets 22-11, your first place New York Mets, by the way, 11 games over 500 and a few games up on the Phillies in the National League East. Unfortunately rained out today. Very disappointing, but we didn't know what else to do with our time today. At least I know that's how I felt. And I think the guy over here to my right, left, one of these ways over here. So we decided that, hey, let's talk about the Mets, a little state of the union, if you will, as we discuss the first month of the New York Mets here in 2025. Guys, I am Tony Metro. If you guys are new, I do daily Mets content. And then my guy over here, Carson, I know he's been doing this for a number of years with Mets Weekly, but Carson, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right. Well, I am Carson. I'm from Mets Weekly. I do a show following every single 3-game series during the regular season with my co-host Frank DiCagino. Jesus Christ. And Tony, you used to actually be on the stream as a regular for a while, and you went on, did your own thing, and we kind of continued it on, and we just basically talk about the Mets nonstop. We recap the games, we talk about some specific topics in depth. We break down basically everything that goes on with the team in those last 3 days, hovering around those series, and it's a lot of fun because even though there's opinions that some people don't really agree with all the time, we're very brutally honest, we're very direct, we're not going to sugarcoat things, we're not going to sit here, blow smoke up the team's ass. If they're not playing well, we're going to tell you exactly what we like and we dislike, and that's what we kind of try to preach here. And if we see something we don't like, we're going to tell you. We see something we do like, we're going to tell you. So I think that, when we go live like this and we do that, and we do it live. And I think that, it really connects a lot of Mets fans to, also give their opinion as well. So that's what I think is really fun about it, because doing it live, it's very interactive in that way, and everybody can be very reactionary and also break things down with us as well as we talk.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that was what I loved about Mets Weekly when I was still a part of it. Now I'm an alumni, but you guys have carried that torch, doing a great job. Basically just putting out all the Mets fans' feelings in one 10, 20, 30-minute video, sometimes hour and a half, 2-hour long stream. So I love that you guys are still doing that. I just saw Frank's video the other day, by the way, and he was feisty after the Mets lost that game to the Diamondbacks on Wednesday. That was what I loved so much about doing Mets Weekly with you guys. And I'm so happy that you guys are still carrying that on. Carson, what's up with you? Anything new on your channel? Anything new on your Twitter?
No, I just am completely a servant to the Mets. Wherever they go, I go. I'm talking about them. They give us the content. We know that there's always something to talk about with this team because they're so hectic constantly, and there's always things moving in and out, things go in clumps. We know that because usually you see no news for like 2 days, and then 5 different things come out, and you have to wrap everything up. So I think, right now we're just sitting here with, what the Mets are doing throughout the season, and, as consistent as we can be just after every single series. We're here for the long run. We're not going anywhere. We all know Mets fans aren't going anywhere, and they're loyal to our team, and we show it every single time, keeping it consistent. And, that's the goal.
Absolutely. Well, glad that you guys are doing well. Glad that we can still connect and have our little moments here. So very happy to have you here on the stream. Welcome, guys. Be sure to leave this video a like. Be sure to follow Carson. I'm sure that most of the viewers here are watching because of Mets Weekly or because of Carson, but appreciate it if you guys would follow me as well or subscribe to me, but hopefully make sure you follow the Mets Weekly Pod. They do such a good job. So overall, things are going so fantastic in Queens. The Mets 22-11, like I said, 11 games over 500, 3 games ahead of the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League East, pending their results from their game this evening, whatever they're playing tonight. I believe it's against the Braves. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I think it's the Braves. But things have been going very well. So my first question to you, Carson, is month into the season, I just laid everything out. The Mets have been doing very well for the most part, outside of that tiny little 2-game skid against the Diamondbacks where they lost those last 2 of the series. First Citi Field loss since last August when Hawk Tua girl threw out the first pitch.
I was at that game.
There you go. You were. So maybe you were the magic elixir and not Hawk Tua girl. My question, though, what are your overall feelings on the 2025 Mets so far?
I mean, I'm very mixed in this way, and I feel like I'm a very, I don't like to say I'm pessimistic. I'm just very realistic in a fact of what can sustain and what can continue. And I feel like, yes, they are 22-11. They are 11 games over 500, but I still continue to have this feeling where I'm like, yeah, this could be better. I just feel like this could be better. It's not really much to do with the offense or that inconsistency or, the crumbles of the bullpen and some guys struggling or going on these streaks. I feel like there still has been some instances where they're just leaving some opportunities on the table, not just specifically with runners in scoring position, but it seems like with a lineup this deep, I still feel like I'm asking the question every single day where I'm like, okay, is this lineup going to show up? Is this lineup actually going to produce in that way? And I feel like it's something that I shouldn't have to ask when you see a lineup where I think this is one of the best they have had for a long time. I think we all can agree with it, with the talent that it does have. Breaking these guys down one by one, obviously they all have their different weaknesses or strengths or whatever. There's things that I'm not a fan of that they are doing. There are things that I really do like that I feel like have improved from last year under David Stearns. Obviously, one of the points of emphasis, the catchers, of course, have really been a lot better, throwing out runners, of course. The defense has not been particularly good, but they make a fantastic impact when they are good, as we have seen many, many times with a lot of pitch to contact guys on the mound. I was not one to really, have big doubts with this starting pitching staff, because I knew that eventually you could elevate it and make these types of adjustments throughout the year, because we saw David Stearns do things like that. But I feel like at some point, if there's some things that don't get cleaned up, it's going to start to cost them when they're going to start playing these types of teams. And I feel like I'm the bad guy in that sense when I'm saying that, because I know that they are in this position where they're in first place, but I still just think they can be a little bit better. I really do believe that there are things that were preventable that they have done so far. And if they clean them up, maybe they can get to that level. I just am not seeing that team that I was expecting offensively, not to mention fundamentally. It's just not like I'm still not seeing them fire at all cylinders. It's great to have a base of 11 games over 500, but it's still just not like I still am not seeing the team that I was expecting to see. And hopefully it stretches like that throughout the year and they gain that consistency. And there's plenty of different things that I would do for those types of adjustments, but we're not there yet. We're just letting them play it out for the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and a couple thoughts on that. So number one, obviously runners in scoring position, huge issue for the team. They are 15th, so right in the middle of the pack as far as the entire league in terms of leaving runners on base. 4.5 runners left in scoring position per game. We know their batting average was 222 before yesterday against the Cardinals. I would guess it went down a little bit. I didn't look at what the updated numbers are. There were a couple of base hits. Vientos had one that did not bring a runner in, but overall, it's definitely been a little lackluster there. I agree with you in the fact that when I was watching the Mets and Cardinals yesterday, you had the first inning where Clay Holmes, who has been fantastic, and we will get to him later, not stepping off the rubber while that runner was stealing second to allow him to score. So nobody alerting him to that. Then Francisco Alvarez later throwing down to third and into left field, allowing a run to score. Really was a moot point because the next hitter got a base hit that scored him. But those are the kind of little things that I have also been kind of a little worried about and concerned as far as the Mets' stature here in 2025. So I'm with you there. Do you have an updated number there on the Mets batting average with runners in scoring position after yesterday?
Yeah. Right now, I'm trying to look at the leaderboards here. It looks like as a team, as of right now, the slash line with runners in scoring position is 226, 327, 398. They have a 101 weighted runs created plus 1% over that the league average. It seems like they just are in a point where I don't know. It's gotten a little bit better where it doesn't look anemic, but I still feel like they're leaving a lot on the table. It's not even just the process of things have been a little bit lackluster. I can't lie on that, but I think it's not just of so getting those hits with runners in scoring position. It's also the fact that we're just seeing them give away a lot of outs as well, whether it is hitting the ball on the ground with the bases loaded. Not to mention, there's also been, even with, if you're counting for hits or counting for those stats with runners in scoring position, you always have those sacrifice flies as well, which don't count for that. And it seems like the Mets don't take that initiative either. It seems like a lot of the balls being put in play with runners in scoring position have been on the ground. They have been inconvenience for a team that is not very great on the bases. They don't have these, very fast runners. They have a few, but in totality, for the guys who have the most chances, they don't at the current moment. I feel like even though, for what I'm seeing, they are fourth right now in total sacrifice flies, I don't think I probably could point out maybe 2 times when that has happened this season so far. It seems like situationally there's just not really much awareness in that way. And I'm really kind of getting a little bit tired of, well, the bases were loaded. You had nobody out. They end up scoring maybe 1 run or they don't score at all. Like, I feel like with this type of high-powered offense that they have, this type of talent that they have, even without consistency or strengths and weaknesses, this type of talent that they have, when you have the bases loaded with nobody out, have all these opportunities to score, at least 2 should come in every single time. And for some reason, we're just not seeing that. And it all depends on this situation. And that's kind of how that's kind of how I look at it. But I feel like this is definitely a very anemic situational hitting team. And I really hate saying that for a team that is in first place right now, but it just really, I'm not seeing this efficient play right now with the offense, and it gets very frustrating, especially when you're putting these types of guys in the middle of the lineup, guys like Nimmo and Vientos who have been struggling with it. And right now, it's really in a situation where, Pete Alonso, who was their worst with runners in scoring position last year, is now their best. So again, it seems like it's all flip-flopped from last year, and they're just leaving a lot on the table. Like, that's just how it really feels, staring at strikes, swinging at other pitches in the dirt. I just feel like there's a lot of bailout for the defense, a lot of bailout for the pitchers that they are facing, when you know that these pitchers, they will make mistakes, and they don't need to be overzealous like that. I think you're muted.
Without
Yeah,
a
there you go.
doubt. Now we're here. Without a doubt. I think Wednesday was probably the biggest marker of what you just said. And that was because obviously Tyrone Taylor leads off the ninth inning with the Mets trailing 4-1. He hits the solo home run. That makes it 4-2. The Mets load the bases with nobody out. They have what you would call the heart of the order, Mark Vientos. Yeah. Chasing strike three, swinging at a slider, down and away out of the zone for the first out. Then there was the winker, was off his foot, wasn't off his foot, non-reviewable. Who knows what's reviewable anymore? What is Major League Baseball review system? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah,
and then obviously Francisco Alvarez grounding out to end that one, which was really frustrating when you look at it. If you would have put us in a time capsule 2-3 years ago and said Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos would be up with the bases loaded and 1 out or no outs, whatever you want to call it, you would think this was our number one and our number, like, Vientos was always somewhere in the top 10.
4, 5, yeah.
Exactly. Like that. And neither of them came through. I think they're a little overzealous, like you kind of said. They're swinging for the fences, swinging out of their shoes. They need to bear down, and they need to take a recipe from the rest of that lineup and just understand, hey, sometimes a fly ball is all you need. Sometimes a walk is as good as a hit. Moneyball, quote it right there. So we definitely have been a little burned by some of the, I would say, green of this young roster at times, as far as Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos specifically. But overall, the Mets are 9th in runs scored this year. We'll get to the offense later. But really, the biggest thing for me so far is that every time I sit down on my couch getting ready to watch a Mets game, I feel uber confident that their starting pitcher is going to give them a chance to win. And that is proven by their league-leading ERA, which is just barely now over 2.5. Earlier this week, it was a little bit below that. But so far, Mets have the best earned run average as a starting staff here in Major League Baseball 1 month into the season. Carson, I want to ask you, what do you most attribute that to?
I think it's more of just the fact you have guys who are willing to make pitches. Last year, you had a lot of a struggle with walking the entire ballpark, specifically with the bullpen, but also with the starting staff. Now, there have been a lot of instances where the defense has been extending the inning. Maybe there's a few walks here and there, but it seems like these guys are trusting their stuff. Not to mention they have really good game callers behind the plate in guys like Luis Torrens and also Francisco Alvarez, who just got back. Hayden Sanger even had a really good, a really good stint with us before Francisco Alvarez came back. So I think there is a lot of moving pieces to this type of success, and it more comes unnoticed as of right now because, of course, with the names that are in this rotation, especially with the names that went down, who are the two highest paid pitchers on this starting staff in Montas and Manaea. So there definitely was a lot of question marks in this way. And to me, it really just didn't have anything to do with plugging in a stat line or plugging in who is good or who is not last year. It all really just had to do with piecing things together, especially with this bullpen having, all these long relief arms in Budo and Kranick and Brazaban, who have been very solid so far. They've had a few blowups, but they've been good relatively where they can go multiple innings and get that bridge to the high leverage arms. But I think when it comes to this starting pitching specifically, it's really just more about executing properly, getting ahead in the count, looking how to expand the zone because you don't have the flashiest or explosive stuff. And it's all really just about simply creating outs. That's literally all you can really do. And hopefully the defense can tighten up a little bit behind some of these guys. There is one pitcher in David Peterson where they seem to just show out completely defensively with him. Then everybody else, they just lollygag. I don't know why, but it's always really been with that with David Peterson. I don't know if it's just they just love playing for him and they think he's, the next of all time, the next greatest of all
Some
time,
some
but
things never
it's a
change.
different
You will
it's a
never let
different
David
feel.
Peterson. You will never let
I
David Peterson get the credit he
yeah, listen,
deserves.
I will say he has developed into a solid arm, and I will say he has developed into it. We obviously were expecting that from him being the first round pick that he was. I feel like there just wasn't a structure from him for a long time, and maybe somebody like David Stearns was able to pick that apart, and he was able to, you know, make a little bit of a tweak to his mechanics, be able to induce ground balls and just kind of stay in the game, keep the team in the game. And I feel like that's the way that he is really developed. Is he a world beater? Absolutely not. Do I think that he's the true 2.5 ERA talent that he was putting on display last year? No. But I do think that he has developed into a quality pitcher. You look at the other side and a guy like Tyler McGill, who has not been able to gain that consistency. So far, he's been good, but we've also seen in the past Tyler McGill, Mr. April. He's been fantastic in April. Teams start to figure him out. He's unable to put away batters, unable to go deep into games. So that's kind of what we are looking at here, of just applying what David Stearns has been known to apply with these pitchers and getting the best out of them. And, just kind of not really catching lightning in a bottle, but I would just say forming and piecing this thing together and not panicking when it does go wrong, because you can always make these types of adjustments to the rotation. Because everyone will continue to say with this rotation, they'll say, oh, well, how will Clay Holmes hold up? Will Tyler McGill keep going like this? Will Griffin Canning hold up like this? Like last year, he wasn't that good. They don't really have to hold up, because you have all these other starting options. We all know that we're going to see a debut with Blade Tidwell. Maybe he's somebody that does contribute down the line. Who knows? You know that Manaea is going to be coming back. We know that Montas is going to be coming back. There still is plenty of options here of guys who can make starts. We also know that they have some assets. Maybe they trade at the deadline for some legitimate starters. They have so many different avenues that they can go. And I think that the main reason as to why there's such a safety net right here and why there is such a confidence in David Stearns to go along with this rotation that doesn't have these flashy names, it's because they know kind of how to piece it together and not just look at it at face value. And I think that that's the main reason as to why they've had this success. And those types of adjustments maximize these pitchers the best way that they can. I can't say the same thing for the hitters, because there's been concerning things about the hitters. But with the pitchers, I mean, you're really, really starting to show, it's really, really starting to show the impact of what David Stearns was able to do in Milwaukee. Now he has a little bit more of a spread out budget, more of a bigger opportunity to do that. Slowly but surely, you are going to get, to that point where this team will just continues to be a pitching machine. Someone goes down, somebody else comes up, and they're going to be good. So again, I think that not everybody's going to have that success, but I think in an efficient way where you're like, okay, 3 times out of 10, 4 times out of 10, you're going to see a high contributor coming from somebody that you didn't even expect whatsoever. And that is what David Stearns has been able to contribute to this organization. I think that it's definitely on full display after everyone said this was the most concerning rotation going into 2025, along with the Orioles. The Orioles, that turned out to be right. The Mets, they're top 5 in nearly every category right now. And I'm not surprised, because this is what David Stearns has been doing throughout his entire tenure in baseball.
Yeah, 100%. You preached about it perfectly. David Stearns, since he became the president of baseball operations for the Mets, has preached, make sure that we have organizational pitching depth. So when he made the signings of guys like Griffin Canning and Jose Urena and of all the other guys we saw this week, like Chris Davinsky and Brandon Waddell, who hadn't pitched in Major League Baseball in 4 years, we rolled our eyes and said, oh my God, who are these guys? Well, guess what? They have contributed already. And while they may not do it throughout the entire 162, they are a part of the story, because they're preventing other guys that may be more important down the line from having to waste bullets right now. So, despite the fact that we had to use some of those guys this week, they actually performed relatively well. So,
Yeah.
I'm totally with you on that. Let's go to the batting as far as the lineup, because you mentioned it. You said some of the offensive components that David Stearns has brought in have not been so great. I want to touch on just one of them, and specifically that is Tyrone Taylor, because he's kind of turned things around.
Yeah.
Everything else that he kind of inherited from the previous regime have not been doing so great. So what do you think about Tyrone Taylor? What do you think about some of these ancillary pieces that he's brought in so far for 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's really any, thing to point out with Tyrone Taylor as to him being the big contributor that everybody is expecting everybody to be. And, if a guy doesn't bat 300, he's not good. With Tyrone Taylor, I've always been in this entire notion with him that I'm like, I don't care what he does offensively at all. Like, I know how good he is on the base paths. I know how good he can be out there in center field. He has fantastic range. He has those tools to fill in the margins. If he's batting ninth and he strikes out 4 times, he's still going to contribute. And that's what I continue to say is with Tyrone Taylor, he is a winning baseball player. This is a guy who can save the day at any point, contributes no matter what. And the fact that you are getting this additional offense from him and you're starting to see him, as for what I'm seeing right now, I mean, he seems to be hitting the ball a little bit harder these past few weeks. I think from the 9 spot, it's all really just about setting the big guys up. And if he can contribute that way, I really am, I really am great to see that. But I'm not really here to ridicule him in any way if he were not hitting whatsoever, because I just don't really care that much to see what he does, because I don't expect much from him offensively. But if you get that in addition, it's an added bonus, 100% an added bonus. And I think that's the main reason as to why David Stearns has kept him around, not just with the Mets. He was there with him in Milwaukee as well. And, I think that that's the type of guy that fills in the margins as maybe as best suited a 4th outfielder. Right now, he's technically the starting center fielder, unless you want to count Jeff McNeil as the starting center fielder, which, as we all know, my history with how I talk about Jeff McNeil, no, not at all. But with Tyrone Taylor there, I definitely have a lot of trust in him holding it down up the middle. And with his offense, again, it's all really additional, because I only expect him to bat 9th. And if he's, swinging a pool noodle out there, it just clears that 9 spot for the top of the order. And that's kind of how I see it there. But he's not going to set the world on fire offensively, but he could swing the bat. He could get hot at some point, but we're not expecting him to do much.
Sure. And, I specifically bring him up only because you mentioned some of the great picks that Stearns has had as far as this pitching staff, whether it be the starting rotation, whether it be the bullpen. I think that Tyrone Taylor has been one of the stars as far as position players that he's brought up. But overall, he did inherit a really talented offense, one that so far this year in 2025, 9th in offense so far in terms of runs scored. So for you, what do you think has been the biggest bright spot of this offense, this lineup 1 through 9 so far? And what is kind of a little lackluster that you're looking for a little bit more from?
I mean, it's more of just the situational awareness is basically, I feel like they just don't have that sort of focus consistently with these guys offensively, guys on base. I feel like, the overall just with me, I obviously am a big numbers guy. I like to go very deep into who's hitting the ball hard, who has this quality of contact or whatever. But to me, it's all really just about don't pound the ball into the ground, because that's basically all with me. It's all about what typically at some point, is a little bit more efficient. But for some of these guys, for what I know that they are capable of, the type of way that they swing the bat, I mean, obviously the main contributor, Pete Alonso, who I mean, he is on another planet right now. I've never seen Pete Alonso this locked in my lifetime. And again, we know that we're talking about this from feats in 2019, where he was a rookie sensation, hitting 53 home runs and passing Aaron Judge's record, and still holds the record for the most home runs hit by a rookie. And who knows who will ever pass that in the future. But that's what he continues to have, and adding up the pace to what he did in 2019, which I think we all agreed before the season. We were like, okay, that might be his peak. That was it. Like that was the best that you were ever going to see. And this year, so far, he has shown you that's not the case. That may not be the case. Who knows if he is going to continue to hit over this 300 threshold? Who knows if he's still going to be this hot as he is throughout the entire year? But if there is a way for him to prove himself, he's doing it so far. And then, of course, another contributor, Francisco Lindor from the leadoff spot. I think from the start of the season, that first series in Houston, we were like, okay, here we go again. This is Lindor starting off slow, and then we gotta start picking some things up. But he has gotten started in April. He's continuing to go into May. And, that leadoff spot has definitely been a big change for him. Like we've said, he's been able to use all of his tools from that top of it. And it's been able to give you top of the order. And he's been able to contribute with all of those tools effectively and give you the guy that you traded for originally. And I think that it kind of comes with some, low anger a little bit. From the beginning of his Mets tenure, because we were like, okay, if he was this good in the leadoff spot all the time, he probably should have been doing it from the very beginning. Obviously, with having Brandon Nimmo here, that kind of disrupted it a little bit. But from the leadoff spot, he just looks like a guy who is in there every single day. Before that happened, it was like, oh, he's streaky. He gets on these streaks. He'll get hot sometime. But now it's every day. He's there. He's an Iron Man. He's posting every day. And then he's also posting results every single day. I mean, he has been that MVP caliber player that they gave $341 million to.
Yeah, and what? Speaking of big time money, $341 million is a lot, but it's not as much as $765 million, three-quarters of $1 billion, which is what Uncle Stevie gave to Juan Soto this past offseason. So Juan Soto obviously has probably, for the most part, not lived up to expectations of Mets fans this year. He has the highest ground ball percentage of his year. Just so I know I'm speaking your language here, Carson. So tell me, what do you think about Juan Soto? Obviously, first 2 homers as a Met at Citi Field this past weekend, had another 2 hits yesterday, including a ringing double ahead of Alonso's home run. Give me your overall thoughts on Juan Soto 1.5 months or so into his Mets tenure.
I'm trying not to be so over stimulated in this way, where I'm just like so angry in the fact that, he's not putting up the numbers that we know that he's capable of putting up. I think when we've talked about, Francisco Lindor, when he came in here, of him usually being the slow starter, he's not this elite hitter. He's a good hitter. He's not an elite hitter. And, we've already seen him maximize it to the best that he can in his ability, and he was a big contributor here. With Juan Soto, I was expecting out of the gate for him to start just completely, shit-wrecking like he has been throughout his entire career, and that has not really been the case. I think the ground ball issue, it's something that has been throughout his career for a while. Like, that has been something that he's definitely pounded the ball into the ground a lot. Of him getting very, very, very out in front, because we know that he has a very quick swing, and he can be very he can lose a little bit of that potential damage by going out in front and pulling the ball. I've always been someone who likes guys who pull fly balls and do that type of damage in the strike zone. But for him, from his certain type of archetype, it's more of just him finding a pitch to pull and finding a pitch to slap the other way. And I think right now he's not finding them. He's kind of just off a little bit. Recently, it's been a little bit better. I will say, like these last few days, it's been a little bit better. But I know that he's going to come along eventually. It's just all the fact of when is he going to get into that type of groove where every time he comes up, we know he's going to do damage. Like when it came to Lindor at the beginning of his tenure, to compare it to that, we were always like, oh, Lindor, you got to do something here. And we're like, is he going to? Now Lindor comes up and we're like, okay, something's about to happen. We know something's about to happen. And if it doesn't, it's going to come real close. So I feel like we need to get to that point with Juan Soto where we're like, okay, if something comes into his wheelhouse, he's going to crush it. And with the phenomenal eye that he has, he's going to find a way to do it. He's going to draw his walks. He's going to do all of that. And then, of course, with the hitter behind him in Pete Alonso, obviously, we'll see how that all, works out and how they, do with that type of protection that he has as compared to what he had with Aaron Judge last year, who Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge. Pete Alonso's not Aaron Judge. He's been hitting like Aaron Judge to start off the year. But that's a different story. I think when it comes to Soto, he will get to it, but I will say it's very, it's not fun. I'm just saying it's not fun seeing this side of Soto at the moment. I'm giving him time. I'm not rushing him, but we're going to have to start to see it because we all know that a 26-year-old is capable of still doing this and still giving you that type of production. There's no downswing or anything or how this is his just complete fall off. But if this is the worst of him, I can take it because he still has been a plus bat, but he just hasn't been to the level that we know he's capable of a top 1% hitter in this game that he's been throughout his entire career as the 19-year-old that came up with the Nationals, and was just world beating from the beginning.
Yeah, you know what? Unfortunately, I think Juan Soto is a victim of his own success. We signed him for the contract that we signed him, obviously world record breaking for all of sports, getting almost $250 million, or actually over $250 million. And we expected this guy's going to hit a home run every single time he comes to bat. He's going to knock runners in every single time at the plate. And we know that baseball is a sport where when you fail 70% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer. So I think the expectations were maybe just a little too high for him. And I think we may have been thinking the power numbers were too large for him as well. If you look at his career numbers, 2019, that year when he won the World Series with the Nationals, he hit 34 bombs in Nationals Park. And then the next was worth 35 with San Diego in 2023 before last season. With the short porch at Yankee Stadium, he hit 41. Look, he's not going to hit 41 because this is not Yankee Stadium. The Mets actually play in a big league ballpark. So those power numbers, maybe a little unfair to hold him to, but he's still drawing walks. He's still getting base hits. Multiple 2-3 hit games this season so far this year. So we all need to, I think, take a step back, just relax. He's starting to come out of that little bit of a shell, at least in my opinion. And by the way, for any Mets fans watching right now, there was a little Met-on-Met crime in this Brewers versus Chicago Cubs game. Jose Quintana giving up a home run to Pete Crow Armstrong. And then just a batter later, Jose Quintana giving up another home run to Rhys Hoskins. So, it happens, right? Or actually, I guess it was not Quintana giving it up to Hoskins. It was whoever is pitching for the Cubs. My point is Hoskins, Pico Armstrong getting home runs. So anyway, my point is, I think Soto just is getting comfortable still. He's going to come around. He may not have that 35 home run season at this point. We're a month in now at this point, but still 5 homers this year. Really glad he got those home runs at Citi Field. Hopefully a little more comfortable in the orange and blue threads. But that does bring me to my next question for you, Carson, which is again about the offense. And you touched on him just a second ago, a guy that nobody wanted this offseason, including his homegrown team that drafted him, Pete Alonso. named the April Player of the Month in the National League, now sits at 8 home runs, 30 RBIs, an OPS up over 1,100 so far this year. What do you think of Pete Alonso's start to the season, and how are you feeling about maybe a potential in-season extension for him?
I mean, I don't see it happening personally with him being a Boris client. It's just like my knee-jerk reaction to it, where I just like focusing what is on the field. But with what Pete Alonso has done so far this year, obviously it's out, like, you know, it's completely in a different level that we have ever seen from him. And you know what we are seeing from him underlyingly as well. I mean, it's been, you know, in percentiles that are just like in another world, where it's we're talking about Aaron Judge territory or Jordan territory. Like, that's how powerful he has been. And I think the reason as to why I mean, to be honest, what it's happening, I feel like he's just more comfortable in this sense, of course, with Soto batting in front of him. But also just kind of like that contract blanket that he had. If he had another year like he did last year, he could always just opt into it and try once again. And I feel like a lot of the pressure has been taken off of him. He doesn't seem to be that featured bat or the featured player. He doesn't have to be the face of everything. He can just focus on hitting ropes to left field or ropes to right field and destroying the baseball. And that's what he has been doing in, you know, the top 5% in pretty much every single StatCast metric as of right now. And then, of course, an OPS over, like, what is it, 1,100 as of right now. I mean, he is giving you an early bid for National League MVP. You know, I think it is relieving to feel this. It is very relieving. I think it got very misconstrued of how we kind of talked about it on our show a lot, with his free agency and how that went on along with it. It all really just had to do with him performing. And if he did perform, he would earn what he earned. That's basically how, you know, his market went. And, you know, we talked a lot of harsh reality over the offseason about, you know, with Pete Alonso, it was like, yeah, well, you didn't show up this year. You didn't show up in 2024. So why would we completely go to the ends of the earth for, you know, him just because he's a homegrown guy? I mean, they already replaced his production with Soto. All they had to do was fill in first base. Like, those types of conversations that we were having over the offseason, they were possible. Like, we didn't know. He definitely declined in production over the last 2 seasons. He wasn't himself. Right now, we are seeing Pete Alonso from 2019 plus even more. So it's been so refreshing to see him do that. And it really does get misconstrued from our show, like I said, where we talked about it in the sense where we're like, done with Pete Alonso. We're done. No, we wanted him to contribute like this. We wanted him to be like to be this featured bat, to be because we know he's capable of it, to be that type of dominant bat. That's what we are seeing. We said it throughout the entire season last year, and it did not come true, really. It was like, you want your money, Pete? Show up. You want your money, Pete? Show up. Show up. Please, we are begging you. This is how our offense can get going. And now we are starting to see him show up, and he's showing out completely. So, I mean, it's just been so refreshing to see this. It is great to have this Pete Alonso back, who is one of the most feared hitters at the plate. It seemed like it was just, you know, a lot of pitchers were taking advantage of him these last 2 seasons before then, and he just seemed to be like maybe a little bit of a shell of himself, but still a 35 to 40 home run threat. But it just didn't seem as prolific as it was to start off his career. And, you know, it's just been so great to see him contribute like this. And it's awesome because we know he is capable of it. You know, we've said a lot of things about him on our show, specifically Andrew. Guys, just go ahead and cancel him. Don't cancel me. But again, it's all really just about him performing, because we know that he's capable of it. And that's what he's been proving right now. And at the rate that he's going, then we're going to start opening up talks for him staying here long term. I mean, it just changes like that. That's basically the trend of the market. And right now, Pete Alonso is making a name for himself once again. And it's good because where would this offense be without him? Probably in a different place. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah, easily. I feel like I've been putting in a time machine because I don't remember Pete Alonso looking as comfortable at the plate and me feeling as comfortable watching him in the batter's box as I have since his rookie year when he had the highest batting average of his career in a single season. I think it was up in the 270s. This year, obviously, it's at 350, something above that. It's not sustainable, so let's not get crazy. But he is laying off pitches that are out of the zone. He's not chasing. He is taking pitches and taking ones out to right and right center field. He's taking his base hits to the opposite field. It is something like we have not seen since 2019 from Pete Alonso, and that is what is most encouraging to me. He has 8 home runs right now. It's, I think, second or third in the National League. It's still far behind the Major League leader, who I couldn't quote for you right now, but that's okay because I'm fine with a 35 home run season from Pete Alonso if he brings that batting average up, if he brings that OPS up by virtue of drawing more walks. So that's what I'm looking for. And so far, it has been an absolute joy to watch him play. I'm with you. I'm not ready to necessarily begin extension talks. Let's just let him continue this season. He's in a good place. Don't put anything in his head right now. I don't think he felt the pressure last year, but I think definitely best thing to do for 2025 at least is just let it play out.
Yeah, I've really I do think that we always do get overzealous as Mets fans. Like that is something that I think a lot of Mets fans are guilty of, and we continue to see things like that constantly on social media of people. I feel like you see one thing or you see something for 3 days, and then you just start to be planning out their celebrity endorsements. Like that's kind of how I look at like with Pete Alonso, he's had a great month, but like let's keep going. We're like let's not jump the gun right now. Let's not overreact in any way. I think that he's been fantastic, and there's going to be talks to keep him long term. We know that Steve Cohen has been vocal. He's like, I want to keep him. I absolutely want to keep him long term because of what he means to fans and what he has meant to them on the field. We already know that at the pace that he is going, he's going to shatter that record set by Darryl Strawberry. Will he do it before the All-Star break? Who knows? But he's on this pace as to where he is just on a different planet right now. And the home run leader at this current moment is Cal Raleigh, the big dumper himself, who is phenomenal, by the way.
Yes, he is indeed. He is indeed. Very well said. Eloquent of you, Carson. Very, very good. So we got 2 more and then we're going to wrap it up here. But my first question to you is, we touched on the offense, we touched on the starting rotation. Let's get to the bullpen, which still to this point actually leads the world in earned run average at 2.69. They obviously had some speed bumps in the road. AJ Minter going down with a lat strain. He seems likely to go down for season-ending surgery. That's just if you ask me. He's getting a second opinion. Anytime you get a second opinion, at least in my opinion, is that you're going to be done for the season. Yeah. Literally 2 days later, Danny Young, elbow sprain. Turns out he might need Tommy John on his elbow. So it has been a flux in the Mets bullpen. Multiple AAA arms called up lately. What do you make of this bullpen? What would be your solution to fix things in this situation?
I think I said this on Twitter a few days ago, or X or whatever we're calling it now. I said it. I was like, I know that David Stearns is going to find a way to figure this out and piece this thing together, and fill whatever gaps that they have in this bullpen. But losing AJ Minter stinks. It really does, especially from what he can provide you from the back end of that bullpen. We know this is somebody that can face right-handers and left-handers. He works quick. He knows how to put away hitters. He knows how to locate from the left side, which is something that can be very inconsistent from left-handed relievers these days. So I'm very I'm bummed about Minter. I really am, because I really thought that he was going to be a big contributor this year, and it seemed like he was to start the season. with Danny Young, I think that there was, running out of options with him. And I feel like there's some other guys that David Stearns gets attached to, these side slinging left-handed guys who throw a lot of junk and, have a bunch of movement on a lot of breaking pitches that get the swings and misses, can also, induce a lot of soft contact. So I feel like there's other guys out there that he's going to attach himself to. But Danny Young started to pitch fairly well in these last few outings that he had. And he also was able to, go after some big hitters. I'm pretty sure he struck out Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber back to back at Citi Field. I think he had some really good other outings where he took somebody else out. I don't know, it's not coming to me, but I think he was really starting to show some consistency in the more of those low leverage situations. But even though everybody's been in those high leverage situations, I think the panic right now with Ryan Stanek is completely overblown. He's going to be fine. I have absolutely no doubt, because he is throwing the baseball better than he ever has. When he came here last year, this guy couldn't even, touch the ceiling of 97. We know that he had that big back problem, and they kind of fixed that up for him. But now this guy's throwing harder than usual. He has great secondary stuff that I would like to see him use a little bit more. Reed Garrett, I like him in the role that he was before AJ Minter went down, but he might most likely will be elevated. So he's one guy to look out for. Danel Nunez is the guy that I'm looking at, who is going to be joining the team during this series, maybe tomorrow, or maybe he'll be available for the second game or something like that in the doubleheader. And he's definitely going to be somebody that they do look to, and it'll be something to look out for because of the injury and the slowdown and how they kind of slowed him down. But with AJ Minter out, there might have to start going go time with him. And then there's the main guy, the $102 million reliever, Edwin Diaz, who we all know how familiar I am with him, and my allegiance to him will be forever. But we know that recently the usage of him has been very, very odd. We know that a lot of Mets fans have been vocal, especially in that Arizona series. He has not pitched in like 6 days. It'll be 7 now with them not playing. So I do not agree with the usage of Diaz right now. I think that he should be pitching a lot more. He has been very vocal, and he said that he likes to pitch a lot. I would like him to be comfortable, because this is an $102 million investment. And also it comes from the time where, if it's a one-run game, with Carlos Mendoza, he seems to be pressing all of the right buttons when it comes to, getting out of things in the bullpen. In that Arizona series, he did. He 100% did not. And that was one of the worst managed series I've seen from Carlos Mendoza since he became our manager. I want to see them go to Diaz on back-to-back days. I want to see them use him like the reliever that, they built around in this bullpen. And it also just comes from the fact it's like, okay, this, if even some Mets fans are like, oh, well, he's not good in non-save situations. He's not good in this or that, or his splits in this or that. If you don't trust your $102 million reliever in every single situation, you've got a bigger problem. So he's going to have to go out there no matter what. He's going to have to figure it out. He hasn't been as effective as we know he can be, especially since his injury. He has definitely not been the same. I think we all can agree that he hasn't been. But in the forming of this bullpen, I'm okay at the moment with it. It's all really just about getting the bridge, and the usage won't be as much. And I do have confidence that the long relief guys will continue to hold things up. Speaking of their rest, there's multiple guys in that bullpen, and you'll also have maybe another long man with them going to a 6-man rotation with some of these guys coming back. So I'm not as worried as of right now, but I can't say that losing Minter does not suck. It really, really sucks that they lost AJ Minter, because he was definitely a big contributor, and I thought he could be a contributor down the stretch. And once again, he might need surgery, which he even underwent on his hip before he even signed with the Mets. So it sucks, but right now I do trust David Stearns to figure things out, just like how he had a lot of moving parts last year where the opening day bullpen compared to the bullpen of the postseason, completely different.
Yeah, that was my jumping off point from what you just said about AJ Minter potentially being done for the season. In my opinion, like I said, I think he's not going to pitch again for the
It's
Mets
possible.
this year.
Very possible.
It seems like just add him to the list of Billy Wagner, JJ Butts, all those guys that, big free agent reliever acquisitions the Mets make that just don't hold up for this team. And it's unfortunate, but also, like, can the Mets ever develop a big time reliever? I can't think of a whole lot off the top of my head. Yours Familia was great in 2015, but he even was very volatile at times. But outside of that, Henry Mejia before him, there's not a whole lot of guys that came up in the Mets system.
They've shown a little bit of strides, I'd say, these last 2 years. I mean, what was it? It was Max Kranick. They've definitely done a really good job with him so far. Danel Nunez. Yeah, Danel Nunez was great. It's all really about the consistency. And I feel like if these guys start to, tamper off, who's the next guy you're going to bring in? Who's the next guy who, I feel like it's all really just about them building that cycle. But right now, I think we're all just looking at this as a whole, and you're like, okay, well, what is this consistency going to look like? There's only one constant. We know that it's going to be Edwin Diaz, who is signed here, whether people like it or not, to a $102 million contract for quite a while. And I do not see him opting out of it after this year. So I think those prayers aren't going to be answered for anybody.
No, at this point, he definitely won't be, because his numbers aren't great, even though he's converted on all of his saves. The ERA isn't good. I mean, the fastball velo has been down for the most part up until his last appearance. But, for me, it's still been impressive that even when they called guys up like Brandon Waddell and had Huascar Brazaban do an opener for the team, their ERA still is the lowest in baseball as far as bullpen, as far as relievers. Even with Chris Davinsky giving up 2 runs in his second inning of work in the 9th inning, even with Urania and with all the other guys that were called up this week, the bullpen is still managed pretty well and given this team a chance to win. It's been more that the offense didn't come up in those specific games. So, in my opinion, I am a believer in the pitching lab. I am a believer in David Stearns finding arms that, like I said earlier in the stream, we roll our eyes at for the signing in the offseason, but they end up becoming important to this organization at one time or another. So that's personally how I feel about it. But let's get to this last one, Carson, because we've taken a lot of your time and we really appreciate you being on the stream. And I hope that all of your followers have enjoyed this as well. A little bit of a different situation with me hosting and you sitting over here, but really, really have enjoyed it so far. So my final question for you right now is, if you were sitting in the Mets front offices right now, along with David Stearns, what would you say to him? And what would you say as far as what is the best thing about this team right now? What's the worst? And what do they need to win a World Series in 2025?
Well, I mean, there's gaps that they could always fill in. We know that there's some contracts I'd like to offload if I were David Stearns. Probably isn't as easy as it seems. But the main thing that I would say, and this comes from an entire topic that'll probably drone on and on, so I'll try to be as simple as I can. Eric Chavez needs to go. 100% needs to go. I cannot stand that guy whatsoever, whether it's from what he preaches or what he says. I really just can't stand half of what he does. Same thing goes with Jeremy Barnes, who I think in concept has been okay, but still just not connecting on there. At some point, Stearns has to hire his own guy. I feel like that's really just been my thing. And, even though Hefner, it seems like he's taken a big liking to him, Chavez is just, I'm not a fan of him. Let's just say that. Maybe I'll go a little bit deeper into it in later episodes of our show, but I really, in specifics, I really think that this guy has more of a holdback on this team than people think that he does. And that's just my opinion. Some people may think otherwise. That is the main thing that I would clear out. And I feel like if they do end up getting rid of him, this offense would seem like it's a lot less of a struggle to piece things together throughout 9 innings, and you will always just be able to write them in for 4 to 5 runs. But hey, what do I know? They won 101 games with him as the hitting coach 1 year, so it'll work forever. Hey, it's whatever. That's just my quirk. But again, with him, I don't think he will ever leave. It'll just be there to torture me. Same thing goes for
All
guys
right.
like Jeff McNeil. So it's
So
like these guys won't leave. You know.
straight up question for you. Straight up trade. Would you do Eric Chavez for David Long, the former Mets hitting coach from the 2015 team that has been with the Phillies for the last couple of seasons?
I think he's a little outdated as well. But he also could give you a little bit more.
Mr. Powers.
No, there isn't. There is absolutely no pleasing me, to be honest. I will always have something to complain about. But I think he's got a little bit more of an idea of what can help win ball games. I think he was a better fit for that Phillies team of their types of hitters. But it also can be flawed and can be, exposed, which what we have seen. I think if you are kind of, if you are kind of looking into the more of the hitting coach of simplifying things, which I think has been very vocalized with a guy like Eric Chavez, I feel like it's being simplified into too much right now, where do whatever the hell you want. And I feel like that's really what we're seeing with runners in scoring position. What we're seeing, it's like, let's give you the least amount of information as possible, and let's blindfold you and see what you can do. Like that's basically what I get constantly from Eric Chavez, and some of the quotes that we get from him. I'm just like, okay, I can't stand this guy. I really can't. I truly cannot.
Well, I will say 2 things. Number one, coming from our favorite post-game in-studio host, and that is Todd Zeal, who said something last night that typically you wouldn't hear from Todd Zeal, and that is, he said essentially, quote, the first 2 swings you have as a batter are for yourself. The last one is for your team. I don't know if anybody caught that on the post-game broadcast, but essentially saying those first 2 swings, yeah, go for the fences, do what you got to do to kind of build your numbers. But that last one, when you're down in a 2-strike count, you got to do whatever you have to do in the situation, whether it's moving a runner over, bringing it from home plate or from third base with the sacrifice fly. The Mets definitely are lacking that, and that could be attributed to their hitting coach, Eric Chavez. So I'm there with you on that one, Carson. And the last thing that I'll leave you with before we wrap things up is I think we can definitely agree that Jeff McCancer has got to go. I am sick of watching this guy play for the Mets.
Well, he's batting 300, Tony. I mean, come on. This is your future batting champion you're talking about. The past, the present, and the future you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. You know how I feel about him. Whatever. If he contributes, he contributes, but I really am tired of the gimmick. I've heard worse, man. I've heard worse.
I didn't read that full comment, full disclosure. I didn't see that. But,
yeah.
Let's be honest. But that's the whole point of Mets Weekly, where we began together. And what I'm doing on my channel as well is that, look, we're not going to pull any punches. We're going to say how we feel. We can't sugarcoat things. Let's just tell it how it is. But the Mets are 22-11, 11 games over 500, multiple games in front of the Phillies in the National League East. Things are definitely good, but you cannot sweep everything that is negative under the rug and pretend like they're not happening. And that's where I think Carson and I agree more than anything else on this team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it again, there's components as to where they can get better, and we know that they can get better. And it's all really just like, okay, well, there's more to come, but also, is it going to be executed properly? I try not to compare different sports because everything is different. But this is the same type of conversation that I continue to have, with like the Rangers this year, where they started off 12-4-1, and everyone's like, okay, stop criticizing them. Well, at that point, they weren't playing well, and eventually it was going to catch up to them. So that's what I don't want to see here with a team that I know is talented and isn't full of whiny little babies, such as the Rangers. So again, it comes to a point where I'm pointing these things out as to I'd like to see them get better, and that's the best way to sustain throughout 162 games, because you don't, just because you're in first place right now doesn't mean you're going to be in first place at the end of the year. You still have plenty of games to play, and at some point, if you don't clean some things up fundamentally or situationally, it could start to cost you. It just could. And I know, and I don't say it just to criticize or complain about things. I say it because I believe that they can be better than this. I know that they can. I believe that this team can be better than that. And, hopefully that they prove me, right in that sense. And hopefully they do get to that different level. Because right now, there's things that you point out and, that they do need to be cleaned up, or at some point it's going to cost you. You've seen them cost, some of these situations have costed them games, even though they are in this position. I feel like every game they've played so far has been winnable, which stinks. I'm not complaining that they're not 33-0 right now, but I'm just saying it's like, I feel like there is a little bit more that they can show. And that just comes from my belief in the team and not just me being a complete critic on everything and never being happy and, post low Mets everything. That's not how I feel. I feel like, this can definitely be a little bit better. And they should strive to do a little bit more, because there's going to be teams that they face that are going to be an even tougher matchup than what they're facing right now. And they're going to have to figure it out in that way.
The expectations have been risen, and that what comes when you get a multi-billionaire owner in Steve Cohen that invests in the team the way that he has, from the players and the payroll to the analytics department to everything that comes with becoming a top-class organization in professional sports. So you're not wrong for expecting big things, because that is what Steve Cohen is also expecting. So anybody that is being critical of you or of myself for being critical of the Mets is just living in a fantasy world. And that is what we are supposed to do as fans, is to give our honest opinions. And I do believe this Mets team will win a lot of games this year and will make the playoffs and have a run into October. Carson, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today, sharing your platform with me as well. Guys, you can follow him at MW Carson, as you can see right here. You can also follow, of course, the Mets Weekly podcast. I believe that's the full name. Is that correct, Carson?
Yeah, Mets Weekly podcast is usually when we're live. Yeah, basically just Mets Weekly, I'd say. I don't know. However you want to put it.
However you Google it, however you put it into Twitter or any of the other platforms, you will come across these guys, Carson, Frank, and Andrew, doing a great job, like I said in the beginning, carrying the torch from where I am an alumni now, and so proud to say that. So, Carson, thank you so much. Guys, thank you for coming and joining and watching this stream here today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, whether you're watching on my channel or on Carson or Mets Weekly's Twitter or YouTube as well. Until next time, guys, I am Tony Metro. Stay true to the orange and blue.